Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome. My guest today on Your Partner in Success Radio, Adam Goldman, joins us to talk about franchising as what he calls an escape from corporate America. Now, Adam has established himself as a prominent figure in the franchise consulting world, and he is recognized as the nation's leading expert on franchising opportunities. And with a remarkable track record of helping over 100 franchisees secure 280 territories in just 7 years, he brings a wealth of practical experience to his professional guidance and his own entrepreneurial journey. Excuse me. I'm getting over a cold, so just kind of bear with me if you would. His own entrepreneurial journey includes founding 3 successful companies across 2 continents, including an IT enterprise in Poland and a real estate investment company in Texas. And that all of that underscores his deep understanding of business dynamics. So what really sets Adam apart is his holistic approach to franchise consulting. With an MBA from the University of California, Berkeley, and over 20 years of entrepreneurial experience, he focuses on more than just financial metrics. His methodology emphasizes cultural fit. That's important. Write that down. Cultural fit and personal compatibility. And he recognizes that successful, franchising is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. Adam, good morning. Thank you for sending me your book, The Franchise Lifestyle, to me. It's in front of me as we speak. But before we get started, can you share a bit about you and yourself, you yourself, with our audience and how you like to show up in the world?
Thank you so much, Denise, for that wonderful opening. So what I would say is this, that I'm the kind of person that just never really fit into corporate America. I'm the kind of guy that when I was 13 back in the day, when we actually had newspapers, I had a newspaper route. In high school, I had a driveway sealing company. In college, along with my fraternity brothers, we actually were marketing credit cards in exchange for 2 liters of pop. It's amazing what people will give up, college students, in exchange for soda, for Mountain Dew, or whatever that might be. So when it came time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, when I graduated from business school, most of my classmates were kind of going and they wanted to go to work for a consulting company like McKinsey. And for me, it just didn't really resonate. I just kind of, I had a business running in Poland, which I sold. Also had a real estate investment company, kind of stumbled into franchising as a franchisee. A franchise coach gave me a few options 14 years ago, and I stumbled into an office cleaning master franchise. And that's kind of been my franchising journey, which I started 14 years ago as a franchisee and a franchisor. And then about 8 years ago now, became a franchise coach and consultant. And I really like this industry for certain people that don't necessarily fit into the corporate America peg.
Your first franchise, was that the Vanguard Cleaning Systems?
That's correct.
Let's talk about that because that's got an
Sure.
interesting story.
Sure. So look, started that in 2010. And it was a really, really interesting business model, right? The model was such that it's a master franchise model in that I own the rights to Houston. And the way it worked is that I had to find different accounts, commercial accounts for my franchisees and their staff to clean. And I also had to find franchisees. So it's kind of in the middle. And that was a really great opportunity to kind of start from scratch in a business that isn't very glamorous, but that has recurring revenue and able to kind of impact people, right? Meaning my franchisees were in situations where they had to get kids through college and help them to find the right accounts for themselves. And also was able to help out businesses, right? So they were in a situation where They needed their offices cleaned, and we're able to do that. So that was a great experience to kind of get started in franchising. If I were just to start this business on my own, I wouldn't know where to begin. It's really an example about how a business that's not a food business would provide very, very good structure and systems for their franchisees.
Just going to ask you, I just wrote down a note beyond food. Well, Taco Bell, yeah, all of them. What other industries have franchise opportunities? I suspect just driving around, you could probably pick some out fairly quickly if you're paying attention.
So I'm so glad you asked that question because franchising is actually in 70 in my inventory. I have pre-screened brands in 75 industries, right? So people think franchising, they think I'm going to be an owner operator, I'm going to be flipping burgers in the back. And to give you some ideas of some industries, this is not in my inventory, but something is interesting. There's a franchise out there that's called Geese Chasers. And what they do is they go to golf courses with dogs and they chase geese. So that just gives you an idea about how,
Are you serious?
yes, how diverse these different franchise businesses
Okay, I
are.
have a picture in my head. I'm going to have to mute and chuckle for a while. Keep
Okay.
going.
So look, 75 different industries. I mean, anywhere we're less focused when it comes to matches about the actual company, and we're more focused on culture. You talked about a holistic approach of actually trying to figure out a good match, and we're talking about just the ideal fit from a characteristic point of view. How many employees? What will you be doing day to day? What are your strengths?
That leads me to another question because, and I'm going to go back to flipping burgers because I think for most of it, that's where our brain goes. But I actually have been close friends with several franchise owners, and they were never in the kitchen. Trust me, they weren't. Okay, did I lose you?
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. It just went silent. I thought, oh, great, I pushed the wrong button.
No, I'm
You
here.
know? But, and I've had people say to me, it's like, oh, geez, how do they operate all these different things? I don't know, ask them. But I do know that I never saw any of them in the kitchen. They were in their corporate office. They were having meetings. They were building. They were growing. They were doing what they had to do as businesses, but not flipping burgers, is my point.
So look, I mean, that's I'm glad you're bringing that up because the different brands that I connect investors with, there's really a scale about how hands-on you need to be or not, right? So the scale goes from anything from an owner operator, right? I'm not necessarily talking about flipping burgers, and we're talking about look, if you're owning a home healthcare business, and if someone doesn't show up, you might actually have to watch someone over the course of an evening, right? That's just a reality of that business to things that are semi-absentee. If someone's investing in a business that doesn't have many employees, like a salon suite, then they could, and it's actually at 90 or 95% occupancy, you're not really that hands-on, right? You might even be able to go ahead and to manage this business by your cell phone. And that's really exciting and cool. But there are different scales about how much hands-on you need to be. And keep in mind that a business that is hands-on now might not necessarily be hands-on in 6 months or a year if you hire the right staff to kind of run that business. And based on your skill set, I talked to an amazing franchisee. He's really interesting. He actually was a pastor and is a pastor, and he has businesses on the side, right? So what he does is just an amazing manager of people. In the morning, he meets with his manager for an hour for coffee, and then he goes to be a pastor, right? And he's able to do this in 4 to 5 hours per week, and to manage this business with a great staff.
Question, Adam, is because I can almost hear people going, okay, tell me more. How do I do this? What makes some, especially now, things are iffy financially for a lot of people. A lot of people are just worn out. They don't want to work for another company. They don't want to try to start their own thing because trust me on this, it's terrifying. And when we start businesses, chances are we don't know a whole heck of a lot of what we're doing. That's how I started two of mine. I just did them and thank God they worked out, but they shouldn't have, probably. So, what makes someone the right candidate for franchising? What should they be asking themselves?
That's such a great question. And what I would say is this let's start out with who is not a good candidate, right? So a bad candidate is someone that really can't follow someone else's rules, right? So I'm not saying that you have to do everything. It's not like you're buying a job per se in many of these opportunities. But it's got to be something where if you're a McDonald's franchisee, you can't say, hey, I'm going to sell kebabs instead of hamburgers. And I'm going to go ahead and not make them golden arches. I'm going to make them golden circles instead, right? You're paying for franchise fees and for royalty payments, and you should be getting value out of that. So, saying that you're able to potentially follow a system and see the value in a system in mistakes that you otherwise would have made if you didn't follow that system, right? Then as long as you have some sort of business capacity and your willingness to learn and to talk to people inside the system, and you have enough resources to invest, then you could potentially be a good franchise candidate for the right franchise system. The thing about franchising is that there's a misconception that every franchise is the same. There are many franchises out there, and just because you would not be a fit for a certain brand doesn't mean that there is a good fit for you.
Go a little bit further with that because I have noticed that some franchise, and I know they're franchises, but there's some slight differences. And I didn't know if that was even allowed.
So what I would say, Denise, is this, that like when I talk about differences in franchises, like, I mean, there's such a universe of franchises. I think of franchising, and people don't realize this. It's 10% of the economy of the United States. One out of every $10 is going to a franchise business. And I even see it in my own and my family's life, right? You go to a gym, that's a fitness. My daughters work out, or they have swim lessons at a franchised swim instruction place. You have a situation where I go to my car, it gets done at a franchise. You don't even realize it's a franchise. I might stay overnight on a business trip at a franchised hotel. It's everywhere, right? So to say that all franchises are the same is just can't be true. It's just like saying all businesses are the same. I have different business models, right? I have owner operator, but even more importantly, I might have things that are brick and mortar retail versus non brick and mortar retail. Mosquito spraying businesses can be franchises. And the advantage of a non brick and mortar business is that you don't have to pay all this money on a lease for an expensive space. You might be able to be in a situation where you can start very quickly, and the economics might make a lot of sense for you.
No. I just wrote that down because it never occurred to me that franchises were not brick and mortar. So give me some examples, just kind of general examples of franchises that don't have to have a building, they don't have to have a warehouse, they don't have to have a whole bunch of other stuff that some franchises may demand.
So let's talk about specific industries that are non brick and mortar. I mentioned mosquito spraying. Let's talk about home healthcare, right? People talk about a silver tsunami. People want to be involved in their community, right? Isn't that amazing that you could potentially help people in your community and help a population that's becoming more and more prevalent, right? And actually provide non-medical care to people that want to age in place at their house. Let's talk about things related to your home, right? So there are all these different home-related franchises. There might be a home cleaning franchise where people need, it's like an endless demand, especially since COVID, of people that want other people to clean their house and have a maid service. You don't necessarily need, you might have to have a location that's not very expensive, that's not a storefront, maybe to kind of store the cars for the cleaners, but that's not considered a brick and mortar business. Those are a couple of examples.
And I have noticed that a lot of small cleaning businesses are kind of coming in the last 6 months, maybe. They're just popping up everywhere and they seem to be doing well. I mean, I'll hire one. I really will. I'm ready. I'm ready to not have to clean my own house all the time. I've got a business to run.
And that brings up a great point because Denise, what I would say is this, that I am especially excited. One of the questions I ask my candidates is how important is status in selecting a specific business, right? So look, I just think that status is people that are willing to be involved in businesses that other people don't want to do. I even have a crime scene cleanup business in my inventory. And I just think that's amazing, right? Because as someone that owned an office cleaning master franchise, taking that one step level or more, one step even to the nth degree, where you can actually have a business that's specifically focused on cleaning up crime scenes or dealing with hoarders, right? I mean, things that are definitely in demand, but other people
Yeah,
don't want to do. I love it.
hoarders. Oh, I just cringed. I did. I just did a whole body freeze on like, bleh. But I've been in some of those houses and ah, I'm claustrophobic. I have to back right back out. I can't do it. Um, Status. That was an interesting word. Tell me more about that.
Status, look, when I talk about status, uh, I'm talking about things such as office cleaning, right? So, from my point of view, um, if I'm at a like cocktail conversation or a coffee or a cocktail party, and people say, "Hey, what do you do?" I clean toilets for a living. That's not necessarily considered high status to begin with. But if you were to ask someone which businesses are the ones that just do really, really well, books like The Millionaire Next Door, the things that do great are frankly things that other people don't want to touch like some sort of a Ivy League MBA doesn't want to have anything to do with, and things such as air conditioning, right? Just really boring businesses that aren't very glamorous that are very much in demand, and I kind of gravitate towards those businesses.
What about nannies? That seems to be a big thing right now. Everybody needs babysitting. They need home care for their children, or for, as you mentioned, the silver tsunami, which I think is a wonderful way to put it. Nannies. I mean, people are working outside of the house more and more and more. And I don't see that slowing down even with work from home. Because let's be honest, if you've got 5 kids running around and you're working from home, you still need some in-home help, mostly to keep them quiet and fed. I think, I don't know. But I've noticed that a lot of people are saying, I just need somebody who can kind of like be a house husband. This is a true story. One, I saw this on one uh, conversation I was in. She said, I just need a house husband. My husband works, I work. I need somebody to pick them up, take them to piano, do this, do that, feed them. Yes, I want to see my children. I want to spend time with my children, but I cannot be there 24/7 for them. So is that something people could be looking at?
So things related to children, right? I don't have anything specifically in my inventory now that deals with some sort of a nanny service or kind of connecting to nannies. I've had that in the past, right? It's a tutoring and a placement agency that I had in the past that does something like that. But I do see on your point, I see a lot of things that are kids related, right? Things such as swim schools or things related to instruction in music or kids sports, right? Like soccer, or even in things related to Montessori schools, right? You mentioned there's even a section of moms that don't want an all day preschool, but they might want a half day off so they can go to work out at the gym, right? And it's kind of like a academic related preschool, and I have those in my inventory.
I've never thought of any of these until I came across this conversation. I went, well, that's interesting. I know that where my veterinarian is, and I need to take my cat tomorrow, so it's on top of my mind. But right across the street, right across the road, actually, is the little dog center, and it's for training dogs. And you can take your dog in there, and they'll take care of them for a while, kind of like what you just mentioned about. It's very expensive. I looked into it and said, I'll walk my own dog. Really, I will. But what the dog gets is a lot. It really is. And therefore, and I asked them, I said, are you guys a franchise? Yep, we sure are. I said, okay, good. I was just curious because I'd never heard of this little company.
So I'm glad you brought this up because look, people ask me all the time, and with my process, Denise, it's really important that people have an open mind, right? So I'll give you an example. My cousin loves baking, but he doesn't love baking at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I can give my candidates three brands that have like 97% that's the same, but there might be an extra 3% that kind of takes one of the three over the top, right? Maybe they're a dog lover and all other things are equal and they're just really excited because this dog franchise is even it's a dog mobile dog grooming franchise. They just like, wait a second here. I love everything about these other two businesses, but this business, I get to be involved and engaged in dogs, right? So I think passion has something to say with my candidates, but
Right.
it can't be it's only about passion. It's got to be up the other things as well.
I get the part about you don't want to be in a bakery at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you have to have a serious passion for serving your community to be able to do that. But what are some of the common challenges faced by new franchisees? We've touched on a few, but are there others that you feel are really important enough that we need to share them with the audience?
So I would say the number one thing that I see my candidates dealing with is with business development, right? You could have the most amazing franchise system in the world. You can have the most amazing territory, right? But if there's not really a way to get clients, either from the franchise brand through digital marketing or from word of mouth or whatever it might be, or from your own efforts, if you're not getting business in the door, you're in a tough spot.
That written down as a question. Marketing. Listen, everything we do is marketing. You put out a resume, you're marketing yourself. You ask somebody for coffee, you're marketing yourself. Everything is marketing. And I don't know about you, but I will hear people say, oh, I don't want to do social media. And I'm a web developer by trade, and I have actually had to, over the years, tell somebody, listen, if you're not going to market, if you don't have a plan or a system to market this brand new website that I'm building for you, I won't do it. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to build you a beautiful boat anchor. It's not going to go anywhere. You have to do the work.
I'm glad you brought this up, right? Because my mom was an amazing realtor, right? But she was not good at marketing herself. And we could have had the most amazing website in the world, but she felt uncomfortable marketing hers. And look, I mean, there are different ways of marketing, right? We're not necessarily talking about going door to door. And what kind of top of my mind is how do you get deals, right? How are you getting deals? And I actually gravitate towards businesses, especially for my candidates that are introverts. You've mentioned in the past, Denise, that you're an introvert, right? And if you and I were kind of looking at different franchise businesses, I would say, look at this one. I mean, because all these leads are coming in. And some examples of those are swim schools, right? Where you have insatiable demand, or house cleaning businesses where you put up an ad and your phone's ringing off the hook.
No? I mean, does your phone really work off the hook? If you're, I mean, it has to be the marketing, right? It has to be. People don't know about you until you stick your hand in the air and go, hey, pick me.
But I would argue that certain businesses are more conducive than others to getting the phone ring, right?
Okay.
For instance, my friend owns his own swim instruction school in Chicago that's non-franchised, and his waiting list is 200 kids.
Wow.
It's
So
easy. It's easier to get into a private school than it is to get into swim instruction in Houston, Texas.
I had no idea, no idea at all. But I don't swim, mostly because I can't. I don't swim. But what is he going to do? I mean, is he going to be able to franchise that and expand, or is that's a lot of waiting?
Yeah, that's the point. He's really comfortable in having just kind of a lifestyle business where he just kind of has these 200 people that are on his wait list. That's kind of where he's at.
Well, he may want to rethink that. So I don't know. That's
Well,
just my
he's a great guy.
advice.
He's a great guy, but he doesn't really want to look. He's just not looking to be a world beater on the business.
I wanted to ask you, how affordable are franchises right now? Listen, we've come out of a bad number of years where money has been tight. It's probably going to remain tight for a while. We don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen, but things have been kind of icky on the financial front. So if anybody's listening and they're thinking, huh, well, I hadn't thought about franchises, but I'd like to know more. And I can see the dollar signs, up over their head going ding, 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 ding. So what are we talking here? How can they get involved?
Let's give a range, right? So let's talk about brick and mortar retail, and let's talk about non brick and mortar retail. So on the high end for brick and mortar retail, if you were to buy a McDonald's, that's a seven-figure investment all in. There is financing available, whether or not it's from your 401k, or it might also be from different financing sources. Maybe you're borrowing against your existing stock portfolio or home equity line of credit. On the lower end, if you bought a boutique fitness concept that had a very small footprint, that might be $200,000 to $250,000 all in. And again, financing available. But if you look at non brick and mortar businesses that could be very successful, like a home healthcare agency, that could be all in about 125 or 150, right? And again, with financing available as well, and then going anywhere up from there, right? So anywhere from 125 or $150,000 up, I would say to candidates.
Outside of the McDonald's, I mean, anybody with a brain knows that that's not going to be handed to you easily. You're going to have to pay for their history, their marketing, and everything they bring to the table. Just you can't drive anywhere in any little town without seeing a McDonald's practically. So they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. You'll have to pay for that. But let's talk about, I'm going back to the silver tsunami. Tsunami. I hadn't heard that. Tsunami. I had not heard that phrase, and I'm kind of fascinated by it. What are you seeing or what are you anticipating is going to happen with that particular segment of society? Is there anything that's out there now that you're very excited about, or are there things that you think might be happening soon?
So look, I've been involved in as someone that has aging parents, right? I've been involved in the silver tsunami myself personally, right? So I can see that. If I look at the landscape for that business, I see nothing but growth, right? I think it's a really fascinating area to be in the franchising world, in that it's not that expensive to get into relatively, and you have insatiable demand. And also, frankly, you have a little bit of the whole status for this. There aren't a lot of people that really want to be in that business. And I think it's going to do nothing but go up. And I have some businesses that are only doing traditional non-medical care for seniors, and I have others that are doing a bunch of other things. Some actually have contracts with the Veterans Administration to actually work with veterans. Some have actually expanded out to people that are non-senior. Maybe it's people with autism that still need help, and they actually have that as part of their offering, or have medical care as well, or hospice care. I think that's fascinating, and that's something of interest to me.
Hospice care. I just lost a very dear friend of mine who was in hospice for a while, and then he passed. He was 94 years old, but still, it's I'll miss him every day. But hospice care, I think that's pretty important. And a lot of people don't really understand what hospice entails. And I think there's some serious marketing that needs to happen around that particular industry.
Well, it's interesting you should be mentioning hospice, because one of my closest friends who's 52, he just went into hospice yesterday, which is devastating.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's an amazing thing. My understanding of hospice, and it sounds like Jimmy Carter was in it for a while, is the idea behind it is that if you're
Yeah.
at that situation in your life, to make it as comfortable as possible at that stage.
Listen, my mother passed while she was in hospice care. My friend, and I'll tell you who it is, Jim Tunney, known as the dean of NFL referees. He was in hospice for a short while. And the, people say, oh my God, hospice. But let me tell you, the care, when the right people are coming to care for you, they're phenomenal. And you talk about, they do things for you that maybe your family members don't want to do, like bathing you or making sure that the medication is sorted out properly. Not everybody can do that. Hospice, I think it's so important. It really is. And end of life care, that's, basically what hospice is, palliative care and end of life care. I suspect as we are growing older across the world that these are going to be big, big areas to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And look, you mentioned at the beginning that I'm making a match to people, right? And I want to kind of give a case study on this. When I have someone that comes to me and I can tell there's empathy and compassion, I'm kind of gravitated towards at least giving them an option in senior care. And the reason why is people that want to make an impact, and frankly, people that want to build big businesses. That's definitely possible in this senior care industry.
How can they build a bigger business?
So look, we're talking about insatiable demand here
Yes,
again.
we are. We are.
Yes. So, but we're also, frankly, not talking about it's going to necessarily go on your lap, right? You kind of need to be a mayor. So if you were in Lake Charles and you own some sort of a senior care industry, you'd have to network locally and get in at the right locations with the right networkers locally. But you could potentially build into a huge business if you had the right staff and also if you had the right connections to actually to place these staff members.
I didn't know much about hospice until, like you, I experienced it at a personal level, and I went, yeah, it's one of those things like, oh, I have to write a will. I have to do this. I have to do that. Who's going to take care of my dogs if I pass? Things we don't want to talk about. We just don't, but we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, I just think that things that are, again, kind of talking about this point again, Denise, but anything in franchising where it's something that is kind of out of favor or uncomfortable, I think there's opportunity there as a business owner.
And let's go back a little bit to where you say a lot of these franchise companies do very well because they're doing things that other people either don't know how to do. Mosquito abatement's one of them. Nobody wants to get out there and poison themselves. And, cleaning houses. Nobody wants to clean a
Yep.
house. I mean, when I was younger and had a lot more energy, I'd clean everything, including the baseboards. Now I'm looking at them going, if I close one eye, I won't notice that. So it's just, I'm finding ways to just live with it. It's not bad. It's really not bad, but it's not the way it used to be. And that bugs me. And I think it bugs a lot of people. Like, this is now not how I want to maintain my home. So I'll hire somebody else to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, you could say that for different things, right? In your life, right? It could be, oh my gosh, I have my air conditioning unit is not working so great. I have no idea how to fix it, but I live in the South and my summers are really, really toasty. I need to get this thing fixed.
You're in Houston. I'm in Southwest Louisiana. People say, "Oh, you have winter though, right?" Yeah, 5 whole days, and they started yesterday. It's not going to last long.
Exactly, exactly.
You know, it'll be cold for about 5 days, and then the wind.
Yep.
I just shut my windows. I had my windows partially open until this morning, and when I went outside this morning, it was 31 degrees. I said, "Well, maybe time to close the windows." But everybody's different. But I don't know about you. Humidity. Oh my God. The minute it starts getting humid again, I suffer. I really do. I understand why people hit other people with their cars. It's horrible. You just can't stand it. But yeah, air conditioning, mandatory in the South.
Absolutely. And look, I'm not a humidity fan as well. That really affects, I'm a runner. I have a half marathon in 2 weeks in Houston, and my body and humidity don't mix when it comes to running.
No, I don't either. But I will say this, and I'm not joking really. People say, oh, women in the South are so pretty. Y'all, we don't dry out. We don't get wrinkles because we never get dry enough. And I'm dead serious about that. So I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned this to me before. So my question is, why do franchises perform better than an independent startup? Is it because the systems are there? It's already been proven. What's the deal there?
So when someone asks, when I ask my candidates, I'm like, what's going on? Right? How are things going? The ones that are successful, look, not everyone is successful. That's just reality in business, in the United States. The ones that are successful, they say, look, Adam, I want to thank you. And I want to thank this franchise brand for all the money that I've saved and all the mistakes I otherwise would have made if I started this on my own. So it's not necessarily it's not only about the things that you're doing, it's the things that you otherwise would have done if you were doing it on your own. And that's a valuable selling point for franchises in that you're just avoiding mistakes that would have been potentially costly.
The truth is, we don't know what we don't know. We'll be, rocking along going, okay, this is going to work. This is going to work. Well, crud, what happened? Well, it didn't work because you didn't know what you were doing. Either your marketing was off, your branding was off, your money was off. You didn't hire somebody to kind of keep you. Look, I'm big for business coaching. If you can afford a solid business coach, do it. But that leads me back to franchising. Isn't some of what of the teaching, the training in franchising kind of business coaching? Isn't that part of how they help you?
Absolutely. And look, that's what I tell my candidates is that when you decide to become a franchisee, become best friends with the consultant from the head office because they have limited resources and time, and
Right.
you want to be the actual location that they spend the most time with. I would also say that under represented benefit of franchising is the network effect. Let's talk about McDonald's as an example. If you look at the top innovations inside of McDonald's, things such as the McFlurry, or the McMuffin, they came from other franchisees' innovations. When I was a franchisee, I was very lucky to have other franchisees in other markets that would give my staff some benefits and train them for me at just because they were being good citizens inside the system.
I mean, nobody wants to see somebody else fail unless they're a sociopath, and they exist. But for the most part, I have found, and this has been I will say this, I've said it for years, entrepreneurs and franchisees, in my opinion, are entrepreneurs at some level. Entrepreneurs are the most graceful and gracious and helpful people on the planet. We don't want to see you fail.
Well, you might want to see me fail if I'm your competitor, right? In your market. What I would say,
I
Denise,
really
is
wouldn't.
good, good. But I've seen cutthroat businesses where they're not happy or nice to each other. And what I would say is one of the great things about franchising is that you could have an amazing franchise in one market in Louisiana, but if someone's in Georgia, they're going to be helping you out.
Right, that's exactly right. Okay, I mentioned at the top of the show, I have got your book in front of me. It's called The Franchise Style Lifestyle. Your future as a franchisee is better than you think. I love that title. Let's talk about the book. Why did you write it?
I wrote it because I think that again, we talked about misconceptions in franchising, and I think of franchising when I ask about the number one reason why people invest, it's because they want to change something about their life. And if the number one thing they want to change is they want to live on their own terms, like from a freedom point of view. And so, in an ideal franchise world, people are able to kind of live that life that they're looking for, to work on their own terms, to work at the times of day they want to. And I'm specifically talking with existing franchisees that are successful to kind of talk about the kind of lifestyle that they have and the lifestyle that people could have if they invest in a franchise.
Because and it is an investment, but for all the reasons you've mentioned, the investment is probably solid because you do have help, you do have the systems, it's all there. It's a largely, I'm guessing, a proven franchise. Why would people just say, I don't think I can swing it. I don't know. What would you tell them? How would you counsel them?
Well, what I would say is it's not necessarily for everyone, right? But people deal with fear in my industry, right? Potential candidates. And I'll never forget, it's 11:55 at night, Denise, and I'm up in my bed in sweats because I know in 5 minutes my money's going to be non-refundable when I bought my franchise, right? So uh, that
Right.
fear is just a big part of all these candidates that I'm working with. And I well, dealt with it myself. Some of it's rational, some of it's not.
We don't know what we don't know. I mean, we can be assured that, yeah, everything's going to be fine. And if you believe all of that, by the way, don't. It's not going to all be fine. You're going to hit roadblocks practically daily. But as entrepreneurs, and I've said this before too, we have to have cast iron stomachs.
Evolutionary way wise, I think that we tend to have a how would I put it, a bias towards not making a risk, right? Maybe it's because of our biology or our past. And if you ask people what they say, what they regret, it's not, oh my gosh, I did too much. It's, I should have done this one thing, or I should have bought this business, or I should have made this investment.
I was muted because I was digging through the book. I am on page 5, and I love the title, Your Future as a Franchisee is Better Than You Think. And you go on to say, when describing the future of franchise opportunities, it would not be speaking out of turn to call it bright. The number of franchises continues to grow each year, and the amount of money generated is growing. And I think you said it was 10%.
That's my understanding.
Wow. Okay, so and franchising provides a done-for-you approach to building a successful business, which I've looked at franchising before. I've never gone any further than looking at it, but it's still on my whiteboard. Look at franchising. And at some point I will get out there. But you said you started as a serial entrepreneur and then quickly realized that you had a hard time creating scalable businesses. Been there, done that. What was it, Adam? This is my real question. What was it that, I mean, you've always kind of done your own thing, you've had your own businesses, but what led you to your first franchise? Vanguard Cleaning System. What got you there? Was there a moment in time when you went, that works. I can do that.
So it was just kind of the time of my life, right? It was 2009. We were dealing with a recession. We call it the Great Recession now. I was a real estate investor. I was having a hard time finding deals. I didn't know what to do next, right? I knew I wanted a scalable business. I'd just gotten married, right? And had a kid on the way. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this on my own. I don't want to become a corporate slave. What's next? And kind of stumbled into it. And in hindsight, it was kind of realizing that I needed help. I had all this ambition and I had all this skill set, right, of actually implementing playbooks, but I didn't really have the playbook myself. And that's where franchising came in.
Introduced to it. I mean, I'm people always say, well, how did you get started? They'll ask me that, how'd you get started? Well, I know how I started this podcast. It's one of those things that kind of sticks with you forever. But I've had other small businesses I couldn't tell you. It just happened. It was organic. I just did it because it felt right. But how did you, uh, where did this pop into your head that a franchise might be a good idea? Was it marketing? Did somebody tell you about it? Did you clip a coupon somewhere? How did you get there?
I was walking with my mentor in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I saw a sign for Liberty Tax. And he said, oh, my friend is a franchise coach and consultant, and she owns Liberty Taxes. You should talk to her about what you're going to do next, Adam.
Liberty taxes. I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's just a look. It's a business that it's a franchise business. Their business model is they go ahead and they have someone dressed up as a Statue of Liberty, and they are in working class neighborhoods. And the whole idea of this business is to get people to come in, and they frankly they borrow against their tax refund.
Gotcha. And you know, a lot of people do that.
Yep.
But if this company has been around for a while and they don't have a god awful reputation, that makes sense. You know, go to some place or some company that has a good reputation and you know you're not going to get in trouble doing this.
So I don't know very much about this specific brand, right? About this industry. One of the challenges I have, frankly, about the things related to tax or loans is that there is a lot of regulatory pressure in that industry.
There
So
would
there are
have to be, yeah.
predatory lending legislation that happened in the past 5 to 10 years that's really made put a damper in that whole industry of lending at very high rates.
That's as it should be. So
Yes.
right now you mentioned a couple of times your portfolio. What are some of your favorite? Give me the top 5 that you really like what's going on with them right now, the 5 different industries.
Sure. Sure. So I mentioned home care, right, or senior care. I'm really excited about that specific industry. Number two, for the right candidate, I love swim instruction, and the reason why is, especially ones I actually have some of my inventory that are asset light, meaning you're not building a huge swim school, you're renting existing swim lanes in an existing fitness studios. That would be number two. Number three, just kind of thinking off the top of my head, I I really like the salon suite industry. I think that's the kind of thing where it's a real estate related investment, and you're going and look, these aren't for everyone, but just kind of in general in my portfolio, things that I'm excited about. Low employee headcount. Number four, I'm excited about things that are related to home services. If you look at things related to home service, it might be maid services, or it could be things that you're doing some sort of work inside someone's house that there's need for. Those are really the top four that kind of come to mind right now.
That I instantly went to people who come into your home and cook. There's a lot of people, and I don't know anything like this. I love to cook, so I don't want anybody in my kitchen. But it occurs to me as I wander around the internet, which I do a lot because I don't sleep all that much, that people are getting more and more interested in healthy foods, healthy cooking. They're tired of feeling bad and eating junk. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a growth industry, people who can come into your home, consult with you, find out what you're allergic to, are you gluten free, what do you need, and then set up a system where they cook for you and they don't cook in your home, but and I'm just making this up as I go. I'm sure you can tell, but they'll bring the meals that you have, the menu that you two have created together, and then the meals are delivered and everybody says goodbye and then they come back the next day. I'm wondering. It seems like that
That's
would be a good franchise.
that. Look, I mean, that's a great idea in general. I don't know of any franchises like that now. What I would say, Denise, is that you're talking about wellness, and I'm a big believer in the wellness industry,
So that was
right? I
the
mean,
word I could not find, and I knew it was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, people are tired of being fat, lazy, and overworked. And we're eating, I hate to do this, McDonald's, but they're eating stuff like McDonald's. And, instead of eating vegetables, I like broccoli. But, it's just, I think people are ready to feel better, and it might be a good opportunity for somebody.
I agree, and anything that kind of has a trend of wellness, I think that has legs, right? And that's
Right.
a lot of my
Right.
business is trying to see what has trends and what's not a fad.
So how do you determine that? I'm sure you've got a system where you're plugging in numbers and you're, looking at social media. Do you have a way to follow trends or find new trends and kind of pay attention to them?
So that's a great question. I mean, unfortunately, I don't. I'm myself. I am. It's hard to be scientific about what's going to be a fad in 5 years from now. I just kind of need to go through my own idea about whether or not something's going to be good or not. There are no guarantees. I wish I had a crystal ball, right? Um, it's less. It's more kind of anecdotal and just kind of seeing what's going on and trends in the industry and hearing what the franchisor said. What every 6 months, my franchisors come to me and they talk to me about what's going on in their industry, and that's really a good way for me to just kind of sense about what's going on in their industry and see if they're a good fit for my candidates or not.
Well, before I let you go, and we are running out of time, is there anything in this book that you think people really need to understand or read? And where can they find the book?
So the book's on Amazon, both in Audible format or also in print format. For me, and I don't have the book in front of me in the page, but I think that one of the most fascinating people that I interviewed was someone that owned a water restoration company. He kind of talked about scaling his business and also talked about how he kind of stumbled at the beginning. And I thought that was a really fascinating interview with him. In that, number one, things are hard at the beginning, but number two, how he was able to overcome that and build a scalable business in an industry many people don't think about called water restoration.
I mean, listen, I live literally between Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. We think about it. Very, we're aware of it. Um, Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want the audience to know? Any kind of last thoughts, and where can they find you?
So what I want to say is that if you think that franchising might be of interest to you, I do offer free 15-minute conversations to kind of see if we're a good fit for each other. My website is franchiseadam.com. Alternatively, if you just kind of want to find out more about the franchising world and what I do, and also potentially book, you could go to franchisecoach.net. And look, if I don't think you're a good fit for franchising, I promise to let you know.
Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for being with us today. And here's what I took away from this conversation. Adam Goldman's expertise is perhaps most comprehensively captured in his book, The Franchisee Lifestyle. And that book serves as a comprehensive guide for individuals considering franchise ownership. And he draws from his extensive background as a former franchisor in the commercial cleaning sector in Houston, I believe it was. And he provides insights into navigating the complex landscape of franchise opportunities. The book delves into critical aspects of franchise investment, in exploring how individuals can identify promising business opportunities among the thousands of available options and understand the potential for creating additional income streams. So, for those interested in exploring franchise opportunities or seeking guidance in their entrepreneurial journey, Adam Goldman's services, as he just mentioned, are offered free of charge, with compensation coming from franchisors upon successful placements. We didn't talk about that, maybe another time. And his expertise not only helps individuals find the right business, but also educates them on the realities of franchising. And that makes him a valuable resource for aspiring entrepreneurs. As he mentioned, you can connect with him on his website, franchisecoach.net. And everybody, thank you. I will see you next week. Adam, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Denise.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.